Generally, at this point in time, we ask the people at the front door to introduce our guests, but this is a different situation. We have a lot of guests, so I just want to say to you, thank you for coming. We appreciate your being here, and we certainly appreciate your interest in this particular cause. At this point, I'd like to introduce Reverend Jesse Turner, who is going to tell us about our speaker and who's going to introduce our speaker and what this is all about. Reverend Turner.
Thank you, Dr. Blakely. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Pine Bluff, the home of the original KINGFEST. This is Pine Bluff, the only city in Arkansas that has a Martin Luther King Park with a Coretta Scott King Center inside the park. We remarried Martin Luther King and his wife. And as far as I know, there's not another like that in the United States of America. Pine Bluff is the only city where the original KINGFEST brought together Jews, Muslims, Christians in 2002, immediately following the 9/11 incident that happened in New York. We are the only city in Arkansas that did that. And I'm proud of Pine Bluff. Pine Bluff is a city on the move. Yes. Amen? Amen. It's a city on the move. And we have someone here today to introduce one of the shakers, because he is a mover and a shaker. So today, as we get ready to kick this off and celebrate service, celebrate interracial cooperation and community service, I want to bring to the podium to introduce our speaker for today. He is someone that my brother played football with, that I used to carry water for. I used to carry his shoulder pads when he was playing football. Mr. Blevins, I did all that under Coach Eubanks and Coach Grant. So I want to introduce to you Mr. Roland Wiley. Mr. Roland Wiley is a community person, and as I said, he is one who is a Christian man, and you can tell from his fruits that he is a very, very Christian young man. So at this time I present to you Mr. Roland Wiley. You'll catch that last name in a minute.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Reverend Turner.
Yes, sir.
I remember you as the water boy. Martin Luther King Jr. was a man of faith, work, love, and most of all, service. He believed that everyone has the power for greatness, not for fame, because greatness is determined by service. The man I stand before you to present walked in that greatness with power and strength, not because he is my son, because he was a stellar student and college athlete, nor is he great because he received a bachelor's degree in chemistry in May 2009 from the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, and went on to receive a master's degree, followed by a doctorate degree in chemistry from the University of Oklahoma in December 2015. This man walked in greatness because, in addition to all the achievements, his passion for providing and serving meals on Christmas Day to low-income families. And 9 years later, he has served over 3,600 meals. Ryan's greatness is his willingness to educate the future as an assistant professor of chemistry and advocate for the future as an assistant to the athletic director for fundraising at the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. His motto, if I can help somebody along the way, my living won't be in vain. is epitomized in the sacrifice he made to invest in his hometown through his role as co-chairman of the United Way of Pine Bluff, Jefferson County, and chief executive officer of Go Forward Pine Bluff. No matter what title he wears or the role he possesses, his vision seems to see light where others see darkness, and find faith when others see hopelessness are the true measure of his character. On this day, January 9, 2018, it is my pleasure to present Dr. Ryan L. Watley. Is great because of everything he is, and more importantly, everything he strives to help others to be. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Dr. Ryan Watley, CEO of Go Forward Pine Bluff.
He put the pressure on, didn't he? To even be mentioned in the same sentence with Dr. King is it's a lot. But thanks to my father, who has really been an inspiration to my life, who's shown me a lot that the schools couldn't teach me, and so I'm forever grateful for that. I would like to thank Reverend Turner for giving me my introduction music. And the rest of the Rotary Club for inviting me here. I'd also like to thank my mom and the rest of my family for coming out to support, and all of you for coming to support. You know, I really never asked Reverend Turner what I was supposed to speak about. I looked at the theme and I saw it was from nonviolence to no violence. But immediately when I walked in, I was asked, am I gonna give a report on Go Forward Pine Bluff? That's right, I tried to get one in the paper the other day, but there are some details I guess I could explain. So what I would like to do is discuss or to talk about, you know, the speech I prepared very briefly, because I won't be before you long. And after that, accept some questions regarding the things that I comment on or Go Forward Pine Bluff that you may have. With that being said, it's really an honor to kick off such a sentimental celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King's legacy, his work, and reflect on how far we have come in society. Meanwhile, we are here to acknowledge the work to be done as the theme of nonviolence to no violence indicates. Again, when Reverend Turner asked me to speak, I didn't give much thought to the occasion. He asked me 6 months ago, so I said, well, I'm pretty sure I'll be available, and so I committed. However, on the way over here, I began to say, what on earth am I going to talk to these individuals about, with the task being ahead of me, to give reflection on a time period and a leader to which I was not born during that time frame, but I was definitely thought of. And I will say again, I was definitely thought of. The most I can attest to is the documentaries and the literature that I've read concerning the time period of the Civil Rights Movement and Dr. King. Usually I find it more comforting and more confident speaking about my own personal experiences, whether it's with a concomitant process that we're dealing with work, such as therapeutic design when I worked in research, or in my current situation in terms of small business development through entrepreneurship, government and infrastructure innovations, quality of life enhancements, or the mere fact of education improvements, which is probably the foundation of all of that. And also with sports, as my dad alluded to, and the opportunities that exist within those to secure futures of so many. However, again, I assumed I was tasked with highlighting some of the work of Dr. Martin Luther King, and so therefore I would like to do that. I do believe that inequalities among race still exist to this day, and so I can relate to that somewhat. However, when you talk about the Civil Rights Movement, it was a peril time in our country where hatred and humiliation was real. It was in your face, and it was something that people had to deal with every day. And so, even given those circumstances, the hope for more civil engagement with economic prosperity for all preserved, which allows us to assemble in this room today. And for that, I am thankful to Dr. King and all that participated in that movement. And for that being said, to kick off this King Celebration Week accordingly, I feel we all deserve Dr. King and all that live in this time a standing ovation and a round of applause. So would you please do that? Thank you. So now that we've given very much due appreciation and kicked the event off with a good standing ovation, I would like to highlight some of the facts concerning Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights Movement because foundational knowledge is very important to gain a deeper understanding and how to move forward in everyday life. So as we all may know, Dr. Martin Luther King was born in Atlanta, Georgia, January 15, 1929. He was a graduate of Morehouse College, and as stated earlier, he married Coretta Scott. Dr. King is most notably known for his Nobel Peace Prize and his work during the Civil Rights Movement, which began in the early 1950s. The Civil Rights Movement during that time was a strategic fight for ending legalized discrimination and racial segregation laws in the United States. The movement was characterized by civil resistance. Specifically, that means the ability to withstand physical and mental harassment without retaliation. The efforts of Dr. Martin Luther King and all that were part of that era were rewarded with the passing of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which banned discrimination on employment opportunities. Now, when you think about discrimination in terms of employment opportunities, when I was a teacher, I used to talk about how important taking advantage of an opportunity is. You prepared yourself, your resume is pristine, you're educated, you walk into an interview, you're giving it your best shot, but no matter how much you've prepared, because someone is racially motivated, declines you that opportunity for employment. Again, I was not born in that time, but if I can think about the importance of opportunity and being denied that access is a very, very telling event, and I can relate to those things. The efforts of Dr. Martin Luther King also allowed for the Voting Rights Act of 1965 to be restored and protected the rights of minorities in terms of voting. Again, individuals seeking the right to express their voting were being attacked and not being able to express their vote, which would impact the leadership to allow them fair opportunities in employment. This was another key victory for the Civil Rights Movement. And lastly, the Fair Housing Act of 1968, which banned discrimination in the sale or rental property. Again, being able to provide shelter for your home in a nice place, individuals were being denied, and the work of Dr. Martin Luther King sought to overcome that through the passing of these constitutional amendments. In my current role, we deal with strategic approach, operations, and evaluation of those daily. Therefore, again, trying to find some kind of perspective which I really can relate to in those times, I wanted to study the Civil Rights Movement from that point of view of their strategic approach, their operation, and their evaluation, because those were the key three elements to the success of those constitutional amendments. When you really think about the leadership, thought, and they contemplated and they really studied to gain the approach of nonviolence. When you think about it, you say, well, why would, that's kind of unorthodox for someone to attack you and you not attack them back. And so in my mind, the leadership had a vision for how things would play out by taking this strategic approach. It was not because they felt people were afraid, because in many instances there were retaliation. But the core of tens of thousands of people remained committed to the approach of nonviolence. That approach was very important as it not only paved the way for the constitutional amendments, but the willingness to stand in a civil manner in the face of violent discrimination with each case changed the hearts and minds of America. The law is the law, but it takes changing the hearts and minds of people for that law to be put into practice in a fair and equitable manner. Number two, the leadership was able to organize people by the masses under the nonviolent approach. I'm certain the conditions were parallel enough to get buy-in for organization, but to get them to organize for a nonviolent approach is remarkable. Tens of thousands of the people were willing to align themselves and act accordingly. In fact, there were multiple organizations under the umbrella of the Civil Rights Movement. Dr. King was associated with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. There was also the Congress of Racial Equality, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and many more. In fact, citizens in Pine Bluff began to organize in a nonviolent manner for the desegregation of movie theaters, and also the integration of lunch counters and McDonald's. People around the world began to organize because of the trusted leadership. In this day, more than ever, particularly with the conditions and the right timing for Pine Bluff, it is important for us to remain organized and support movements of guaranteed progress that is dependent upon sound approach and, again, organization. I recall during the Go For It Pine Bluff campaign, making a tireless effort to remain organized and cast our vision to as many supporters as possible to receive their buy-in. There's no doubt we were able to pass that election by 70% because we remained organized and cast our vision with a sound approach. Lastly, the leadership had an unwavering commitment to the first two principles of a sound approach and organization. Actions of the Civil Rights Movement began in 1955, but I'm certain planning began in 1950. And it began with the Montgomery bus boycott, where again they were organized with a nonviolent approach to protest the transportation system and had a significant economic impact, which led to the English segregation of bus transportation. That boycott alone lasted for 1 year. However, but the entire Civil Rights Movement, particularly in that time, lasted more than a decade. So the commitment to nonviolence and organization over long haul is a testimony to a process to get over whatever issue you may be facing, whether it's locally, regionally, or nationally. So while I was not born to take a personal account, I would like to reiterate that I was thought of. Not from a sense of my parents thinking of me, but from a sense of so many unselfish seeds were planted for opportunities that the people of that time did not live to see. Seeds that were growing to jobs, houses, freedom to vote for all of us. The sacrifice it took to change legislation, more so the strategy to change the hearts and minds of people, must not be taken for granted. So if we are to go from a nonviolence to no violence, or I'll take that back. If we are to go from nonviolence to no violence, we must first get organized by the masses, identify one approach, rally around that process, stay committed for at least a decade, celebrate the small victories, and end the violence in our communities.
Excellent, excellent.
And as I prepare for questions, again, about this matter or the Go Forward Pine Bluff organization, I ask that you not applaud me, but you again, please stand and applaud those before us that have given us the keys to overcome any issue. Thank you. I'll take questions. If not, I will have a seat.
First of all, I certainly want to thank Dr. Watley. I'm as proud as the family. I feel like a part of the family. We're very, very happy to have you here today, and we appreciate the message that you brought to us. I want to take this opportunity to apologize to you. I forgot to remind you to silence your phones. So that's my fault. I'm sorry, okay?
I enjoyed the music.
You enjoyed the music, yeah. Now, do you have any questions for Dr. Watley?
I must have did pretty good if no questions.
How do you feel about the casino possibility?
I did get one question. I don't know if she heard it. If she's gonna make me answer that, she's gonna have to ask a little louder.
I was trying to whisper to him to find out if he wanted to answer it.
Oh.
I wanted to find out how you feel about the possibility of a casino in Jefferson County in connection with Go Forward Pine Bluff.
Yes, I'll answer that question. You know, Go Forward Pine Bluff support financially has always been committed to the plan that the citizens voted for. While we recognized and always anticipated that there would be private investment as it relates to the public investment, we are ready to accept whatever comes our way that complements our plan. There's a lot of study that needs to be had in terms of the projected economic impacts. Things are really looking like they will impact the city in a dynamic way in terms of tax revenue to allow the citizens and the city government to be able to provide services and more service in terms of public safety, creating a sound reserve for the city, and many other things that we need. However, at this time, we're waiting on more data to come back, but my role, and I didn't say this in my speech, is to support whatever those in power would like in terms of the mayor and the county judge. And again, we talked about being organized. And if we can be intentional in terms of making work for our community, things in a positive manner, then I'm all for that. And so we have to be committed to being intentional about how these issues impact or these opportunities impact our community in a positive way. And if we can do that, then we'll be successful. Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Watley, first of all, thank you for your leadership with Go Forward Pine Bluff and realizing that there are several components to the Go Forward initiative.
Yes, ma'am.
What is your goal in terms of 2018? What would you like to see that will actually become a reality of all the initiatives that are part of the whole plan?
That's a very good question. The first thing, and you know, it has a lot to do with us in terms of the projects that the mayor is currently working on that were still outstanding when she took office. We're doing our best to help make those projects a reality in 2018. Yes, it does take some pressure off us in terms of our planning and things and learning how to spend money, but in terms of the things that were in the Go Forward Pine Bluff plan, we surely expect the streetscape project to begin. We surely expect the aquatic center to begin. We surely expect we have a Delta celebration series of events and festivals that will kick off. We are a sponsor of the Crossroads Festival that will be held at the Arts and Science Center. So the City of Pine Bluff and Go Forward Pine Bluff is sponsoring that event. And the Crossroads Festival deal with the multiple heritage that contribute to Pine Bluff. progress over the years, and they're celebrating 5 decades of partnership with the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. And so we're definitely a big-time sponsor of that. Moving forward, we have about 7 more events, and the whole concept around the festivals is looking at what we've always had that were traditional events in Pine Bluff and putting some financing and innovation and rethinking and marketing around them to make them more successful. So we definitely expect that to happen. We will see the Innovation Hub take off, and the Innovation Hub is a facility in which small entrepreneurs can come in and get technical assistance, get their ideas cultivated, hopefully feasibility study put out, but to create an entrepreneurial ecosystem to where it is really turnkey about putting small businesses in the community. Another thing is the educational alliances. They begin to meet. This is their 2nd meeting coming up. But the Educational Alliance is an alliance of the 3 superintendents from the school districts and their board presidents, and other educational leaders such as the provost from the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. We have representation from CARC, the co-op, and I believe that would be it if I'm forgetting somebody. But what they are looking at doing is, no, we're not a consolidated school system, but how can we cooperatively come together to look at shared costs, shared agendas, look at funding strategic plans for each district. So no matter what type of turnover you may have in these districts, there's a working agenda for whomever is in that seat, which provides stability for our community and the educational component. So, I've always said education is our hardest agenda item. However, it's our most important. And so we're very enthused about attacking that and being a model for public education across the country and changing that. The master plan for downtown is actively being worked on. You may recall the listening sessions that were held at the convention center, where there were 3 days, and many other things that we've touted during the 2017 year. We expect them to come back with a vision master plan with a model for everyone to be able to see, and getting that across to the council to be adopted. And again, that's a working agenda with the tax funds that you all pass supporting that agenda to be implemented. The Urban Renewal Agency is off to a great start in terms of getting organized, putting a plan together. And the Urban Renewal Agency will be responsible for removal of blight throughout the city. Particularly, we're looking at the central part of the city, the heart of the city. And so that's going to be something that's really exciting. And we're moving as fast as we can to begin to spend that money. Again, we got the first disbursement on January 1, which was about $350,000, to be able to allocate those funds to each one of those agenda items and get that moving. And also soon we'll be approaching the council for a citywide municipal master plan to deal with land use and zoning. You see now zoning is a part of the new compoundable commercial quite frequently, and that is because individuals who are interested in investing in certain places, the Planning Commission now accepts requests upon review, and so they look at how these may, impact certain areas of the city, versus having a master zoning do-over or evaluation to where these things are set. Our land use codes are changed, and you can look at how they impact economic activity. And so therefore it won't be a review. And those things will happen in the month of February. You'll see a lot of agendas get before the council, resolution form, for them to evaluate and hope vote in the affirmative for. So like I said, it's a very eclectic position. And I want to thank Lee Cochran, who's here. She's our office manager and human resource advisor. She does a wonderful job in making sure that we're very fluent in terms of our operations and able to do so. I also want to thank Carla Martin, who's on our board and was Pillar's chairwoman. Our board is very engaged, and they help us make these type of decisions that we're faced with. And so that's some of the projects, some of them that we expect to see. Right, Ms. Holcomb, who's also on our board, I'm sorry. Ms. Green, yes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I am proud today.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm proud of you, Dr. Wiley. I'm proud, and you all know about the marches. We were able to march and go forward times up without violence.
That's right. That's right.
We marched from downtown to the courthouse as a group, and those who were part of that march will go forward times up. It's something to be proud of. Just like you said, man, that it was planned. It was planned. We didn't just jump up and do it. So we are working together, and I think Dr. King would be proud of us in Pine Bluff right now. I was glad to go down Main Street for the homecoming parade again. So let's just keep moving forward and working together. And thank you for your wonderful speech, Reverend Turner. Thank you for your leadership. Rotary, thank you for being open to various speakers throughout the year. God bless everybody.
As an educator, I want to know on the educational initiatives, you mentioned some of those people that would be serving the different school districts, the superintendents. My concern is, will the students, the young people, be directly involved in some of this? Because I've learned that if you actually involve them, a lot of them, they feel like they really have a hand in it. They'll really work and be productive and do things that they may not ordinarily do. So that's my concern. I would like to see students have a direct involvement in some of these initiatives in reference to education.
So I forgot to mention another individual, which is nowhere near enough, but the president of the Youth Advisory Council is also on that board. And so they're supposed to go back to that council. The council is made up of all, again, representation from all 3 school districts. It's on that, it's supposed to come meet with that Educational Alliance and give student input. But there's nowhere near enough to, get full student input. But what we will do, yeah, it is a start. But as we continue to implement programs, and I personally believe that there's going to be an emphasis on after-school programming, and we can look at how students can help design those and what they would like best. That's just me envisioning what's going to come out of this, and how a lot of the schools can really cooperate without bureaucracy getting in the way to start an after-school program. So in that manner, kids can help design that way. But we were conscious of that, and we wanted to include the president from the Youth Advisory Council. Yes, sir.
One of the things that's amazing when you think of Dr. King was the fact that he was less than 40 years old when he died.
Correct.
He did all those things in
Correct.
less than 40 years.
Correct. I believe it's about from 26 to 39.
Any other questions? If not, let us give Dr. Wiley a hand. Thank you. We thank you, sir, for such a great speech, informational, and you talked about it from the point of you were not here, but yet it impacted you. Amen. As we talk about nonviolence, I say this, that this is the first time that Arkansas will celebrate the King Lee holiday. But the unique thing about our governor and the legislators is that when they separated the Lee Day from the King Day, there were no violence in the street, there were no protests, there were no riots. And that's something that we ought to think about. But we ought to give the governor, I don't want to just say it, but give the governor a hand for doing it. And I think it was the right thing to do. And from the separation of those days, now there will be a curriculum developed that can help us understand who Robert E. Lee was and who Martin Luther King Jr. was. And that's going to be taught in our schools across this state. So that is going to be a positive thing. When you know people, you can deal with people. When you don't know people, you get all kinds of thoughts that someone said. So I want to say that just celebrate the governor for what he has done under his leadership. We have some more things going on this week. But let me thank, because see, I'll forget some things. Let me just thank the Rotary Clubs, the presidents of each Rotary Club for coming together again this year. I want to thank the pastors who are here from the Faith Community Coalition. We have our vice president is here, and there are some others back there. That's part of the Pastor Davis. Who else is back there? Pastor Wingo. Some others. I'm just calling names. So all of us who are clergy, we thank you for being here today. This is a very diverse crowd today. Black, white, young, old. When the parade happens on Monday, we'll end up in the convention center after the parade. And it would be good to see us as I see us today. Because Martin Luther King was not just about African Americans. He was a man who was concerned about all Americans. So let us, Pine Bluff, show the rest of the state of Arkansas what a Martin Luther King gathering looked like. Would y'all do that for me? If you do that for me, give me a hand. Well, it's 12:56, and as a Rotarian, I know what that means, Madam President.
Certainly, we thank Reverend Turner for his service, and I want to thank all of you for being here today. We appreciate your support, and of course, we appreciate the support that he's asking for us in the future as well. If there's no further business to come before this meeting, yes, I'm sorry.
President Carolyn, I spoke today with the Sheridan Rotary Club, and they are inviting us again on February the 13th.
My
to their
birthday.
Valentine's evening. They're not sure exactly where it's going to be. They'll be contacting me, but it's $20 a couple, 6:30, February the 13th. I know the former president very well, and I offered her my services as a singer, and she said they couldn't afford the broken glass insurance, so they're going to get a jazz band. But if you're interested in going, they invited us last year. My wife took me out of town, so she wanted to be with me. I don't understand why, but anyhow, we went out of town, so we weren't able to go. So February the 13th, it is a Tuesday evening, and I'll have more information on precisely where soon.
Okay, if you'll give that to me, I'll get it out on the email. Thank you. Are there any other announcements? If not, the meeting is officially adjourned.